yet, but he
Yes.
goes, I really would like to see you play left tackle.
Really?
Yeah. Last year we started at varsity, went up against a guy.
There's a whole
Use our
bunch
cell
over
phones.
here.
We'll call the meeting to order. And I will ask staff to take a quick roll.
Mayor Devine.
Here.
Nathan Kiesel.
Here.
Sagar Talani.
Probably on his way. I haven't heard from him. I don't know.
David Rashka.
Here.
Alderman Vitale.
Here.
Alderperson Haas.
Here.
Jason Kesmerick.
Here.
Dave Webking.
Here.
Rob Hutter.
Here.
Patrick Sloss.
Here.
And myself. Here.
We have a quorum. And we will go then to item C. Number 1, the program progress. I will turn it over to staff.
Okay, so before you is just an updated short packet of information. I didn't print off all the pictures again. Those pictures and all the other backup that staff included with their projects, that will be included with the final capital budget later on. If you want a copy ahead of time, I can get you another copy. I just didn't want to print off all that paper again. So-
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We're foregoing item 1 and we're on item 2, the 2023. Yeah,
Okay.
so, sorry.
We're good?
Yeah.
There it is.
We can bring, did you want to sit at the table too? We can bring, I think there might be another one in that side room. Yeah. I think there's another one in there. Sorry, I didn't, whatever. Didn't come in early. Thank you.
Capacity seating.
Sorry, Jason.
All right.
So what I was hoping to do today is just kind of go over, we went over the whole packet before. What are the changes that occurred from last packet to this packet? I kind of simplified the sorting of the categories. I know I was a little bit off last time. They were out of sync. But now just starting at the top with the administration section. So in your packet, just to go over that quick again too, you've got a project descriptions list that's 2 pages long. And then the next 3 pages are the actual funding details. Following that is a new word called projects on hold. And lastly, our long-term capital plan. So if you guys want to choose, I would say either the project descriptions list to kind of follow along with, or the funding detail report, either would be fine. So starting with the administration section, I ended up adding $100,000 to the ERP accounting system item. I think the 750 probably was a little bit too optimistic. We did have one quote already for about 775, and talking to another municipality, they were closer to $1 million. So this 850 is just kind of right in that ballpark. And then there's two IT items in the admin area. Those are down just slightly. There was annual maintenance costs included in the original submission, so I just removed those pieces. Moving on down then to the development section, we've got, let's see, Beatrice Street string lights. I believe that's to be CDBG funded. There's no changes to that. But the bus shelter was previously submitted at 100,000. Just looking at costs again, that needed to be bumped up to 150. And after talking with Patrick, that's eligible for CDBG. So previously that was listed as unknown.
I just asked a question on that, why is a bus shelter so expensive? Because you can buy a house for $150,000 in some neighborhoods with plumbing.
Good question, yeah. I will defer to our,
It was that custom design one that we did on 92nd Street that would be replicating that.
Okay,
So it's more of a
so if we
statement.
needed to, we could simplify the design, unless we wanted to be consistent.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe it's plated with gold, right? I mean,
We would go with orange glass.
orange glass.
Thank
And
you.
what corner is that going on?
Would be the northeast corner of Greenfield Avenue, in that area.
70th and Greenfield.
Yeah,
Okay, so closer to the mural there?
yeah.
Moving on down to the fire section here. Other than the dorms, everything has remained the same. So previously, there was some discussion about building out the dorms. And, you know, looking at a couple of these stations, there's still some unknowns. Fire Station 3 already has some outstanding maintenance. Maybe the location is, you know, questionable as to whether or not that's the best location. And then, you know, we're planning on building a new DPW facility, and people are throwing around the idea of, well, would Fire Station 1, should that be over with the DPW area? So based on those unknowns, I thought it'd be smart to put those two projects on hold, but then still keep the dorm project for Fire Station 2. So far, it looks as though that would be ARPA eligible. I still need to verify that, but so far it does look like that's possible. I know there was some discussion on that before. Does anybody have any questions on that particular item?
Yeah, I think my main question was, like, was there future plans for 1 and 3, and I guess, I think putting on hold, that helps, but, has there been any talk about, you know, future plans for, well, obviously 3 for sure, but, 1.
You mean for a new fire station?
Yeah,
Rebecca may be in a better position to answer that than I am. I have a lot of ideas,
Yeah.
but I don't know where they sit.
Well, we've had a lot of different discussions informally, and we all have different ideas, and this is one area where I think we have a subcommittee about buildings that this committee has a subcommittee about
Yep.
buildings and facilities. I think we need to probably meet more often on that. We can talk about the fire stations, we can talk about the police substation. There's also a parks committee that could probably talk a little bit more about the Liberty Heights facility that we're trying to move forward on. So, yeah, a lot of informal, but not anything formalized.
what's challenging with that is it could be a very simple discussion of where's the land, where's it best suited, and should we build a new one? It could be far more complex and involve what, in my mind, is the more intelligent discussion to have, but also the more challenging one, which is discussions with our neighbors about not only where should West Dallas fire stations be located, but are there options to co-locate West Dallas and Wauwatosa firefighters or West Dallas and Greenfield firefighters? Those are difficult conversations, and I don't think anything will come from them in the next year or two, but ultimately, I think that's what we should be talking about.
It's like that, fire at the, was it the Egg Roll House or whatever on Highway 100. I noticed that it was majority actually Tosa who responded because they're so close. Right on the other side of the freeway, going, I think, didn't we do some work on 3 with the HVAC in the last couple of years? Or was that put on hold?
I think there were some more comfort
There-
related
There
items.
was some issues with the damper with the chimney there in the kitchen, where it's cold, snow. That's been rectified. I haven't heard of any other concerns.
Thought there
we
was
did that
something
2
about
years
the
ago.
bathroom, wasn't there? Something about the bathroom.
Oh.
Maybe I'm misremembering.
Yeah,
We're
that's-
making changes or repairs as needed to keep the building safe and habitable. Yet nothing's being done to make it a building that should stay in the city's inventory, as far as I know. It's got issues.
What kind of upgrades have you been doing?
Just repairs as needed, like, you
Yeah.
know, when something truly isn't working or is so really uncomfortable to the point where it's not fair to ask people to work in that environment, you know, then we're getting those things fixed, but.
So if there's heating or cooling, so are
Yeah.
those the type of issues? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, to get, as far as I know,
Or
it's
is it
still,
more-
in the wintertime, for example, some rooms are quite a bit colder than others. It was getting to the point where it was like, you could see frost, and that was, I think, resolved, but it's still not in good shape.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to ask you, we had a little discussions, the last, meeting, I know probably you, of course, you know more than I do within the structure of the fire department. What would be the idea, because the issue is about the dorms, because the janitors, that, you know, is coming up more and more, I'm sure, in the future. So what would be the idea within the square miles that we have in West Dallas, which is not gonna grow anymore? If it would be possible to build, instead of a 3 fire station, have 2 fire stations?
It's all about, there's 2 components to effective service delivery. One is the first unit, the time from the 911 call being placed till the first unit arrives. Then the other is the time from the 911 call being placed until what we call the effective response force arrives, which is more than the first unit, enough resources to solve the problem, which for an advanced medical call might be 2 units. For a structure fire, might be 8 units. Going from 3 stations to 2 stations would still probably work for the second half of that component, the time until the large force arrives on the scene. But where you would not meet national standards and service delivery would be noticeably impacted is that first unit arrival, which by national standards should be 4 minutes from the time of dispatch. So it's really a fairly simple matter of getting in a car and driving from point A to point B and seeing how far can I get in 4 minutes. But we can't put 2 stations in the city and reach the entire city in 4 minutes.
Can't do that. So my question is, you know, not to, so in West Milwaukee or Milwaukee, years ago, they closed down a couple of stations on Forest Home areas, you know, and then they lease they provide service to West Milwaukee, you know, they lease the building, they get so many dollars per year, you know, to provide West Milwaukee the service. So So based on what I seen, what's the proximity in Milwaukee, from West Milwaukee, when they go south, there's not one fire stations from 43rd all the way down to, say, Oklahoma. There's no fire stations there. So what's the distance?
And if you look at the map, you're saying from West Milwaukee.
Yeah,
south-
from Burnham Street to down to Oklahoma. I mean, there's one up the street, up on Oklahoma there, on 50, I believe 57.
56 in Oklahoma.
Yeah. So the proximity, that's pretty far, really, between them two stations, one in West Milwaukee and one in Oklahoma. There's nothing else east of that, nothing.
Right.
So they still provide services, you know. You know, what I'm looking for the future. I'm looking for, you know, how far we're going, you know, with the budget operations, you know, within our city here, you know. A few years down the road, maybe I'll be gone, I'd be dead, that's fine, you know. But
Oh, that's not.
That's not good.
but the fact I'm telling you just the way I see it, you know. So I believe, I mean, of course, I'm not an expert on regard fires, but I'm looking at the proximity between Milwaukee, you know, area just not too far from us, and West Dallas, really. The fire stations are far they are between the Burnham Street and the Oklahoma one.
Well, our city is covered the same way at the moment, from Fire Station 2, which is on Burnham Street.
Yeah.
Our city border goes all the way to Oklahoma,
Yeah.
so that's the way we're covered now. And we do know, I mean, there's no question, the data is very clear, that southwest corner of our city is not well-served right now. We can't meet that.
That's where the mayor and I live.
Yeah, I got a
And that's
problem.
not a good thing for you guys. But no, we can't meet national standards for the
Well, Rob,
southwest corner of our city, given the current station locations, it's simply not possible.
All right. Thank you.
That's what you call Greenfield.
Which is one of the things
Greenfield
we're
came to my house for a fire call. Yeah,
Oh, really?
a couple years ago. It's another story.
We'll get that at the end of the agenda. You can
Yeah,
tell us.
sure.
Any other questions on the fire portion of it?
And then, another thing that had come up, the response to Dan, is there thought about, getting an alternative fuel or electric vehicle for that one?
I'm sorry, for which one?
The fire response sedan?
We would like to go electric. For the sedan, I think that's probably gonna be possible.
Okay.
My goal is to have our command vehicles, which are like SUV type vehicles,
Mhm.
converted entirely to electric, over the next, you know, as we go through the replacement cycle.
But is that an option from what's available out there right now?
Today, no. They don't make a good command vehicle that's electric today, but my guess, or not guess, my expectation is that 1 to 2 years from now, that will have completely changed.
Okay. Next category, library, just a minor update here. I know the library board is gonna meet later this month to discuss funding for that elevator. I just kind of threw in carryover as an alternate, just in case that doesn't pass that board. Then moving on down to the Parks and Rec section. One of the projects previously listed was Beloit Road Pocket Park. So that project actually doesn't have any funding yet at this point. So I went and moved that over to that third report that you guys have, just put it on hold. I have to think about that a little bit further.
Yeah, where on Beloit Road would that go?
And Grant,
Oh, okay, with the realignment of Grant, thank you.
Okay. Just double checking my changes here. So if you guys want to take a look at, then we could probably talk about the farmer's market. So there was 2 projects for the farmer's market that also didn't have funding that were moved. So we've got the power upgrade, no funding yet available, and I believe the scope of that project is a little bit unknown. We're not exactly sure what the power needs are. So until we have, I guess, a more of a long-term vision, then we can decide how much power needs to be there. The stage was the other item. There's a kids area and a stage. That also didn't have any funding yet. And then I just wanted to voice my opinion on the bike repair station. So it's a $10,000 item. I was thinking about this one. Personally, I'm not in favor of this. I know it's grant funded. I used to bike quite often, and flat tires were a regular occurrence, and then I'd just kind of put my bike upside down and fix the tire and keep on going. I know there's bike repair stations at colleges, and those get some use there. I don't see this location as being, a destination that would draw a lot of people. I don't know if you guys would share that opinion, but I wanted to bring that up.
Sorry, where's this on here?
I'm missing it, right, Cooper Road Park Bike Repair Station.
Yeah,
page
right in
26.
front of me.
So essentially what you're getting is a metal stand to hold the bike up. There might be some tools attached. And part of the extra cost here is the concrete pad. So that would all be installed. I'm just envisioning little to no use and then vandalism at some point and then having to replace it.
Yeah, Jason, I'm a pro bike guy and I agree with what you're saying. If we need,
Yeah, I agree with you just as well, really.
I think the
It's a
reason
waste,
that-
$10,000, really.
I think the reason this came up was just the constant discussions we're having about activating Copperroot Park. It's pretty dead, and it is on the outskirts of the city, but it was discussed, I believe, over the years to try to, if you put that there, to try to have some signage or, wayfinding or something to direct people possibly to detour to the downtown or, to a coffee shop or to grab lunch or things like that. It is kind of a pass-through for the bikers. It's not obviously a need. It would be a nice thing to have, but I don't know if there's.
I was just I've been in 2 different places recently where they had them in areas where they've redeveloped downtown West Bend and Eau Claire and Chippewa Falls. And they've had these bike repair stations near a pedestrian or bike trail. And I've seen people using them, so,
And I
yeah, I mean,
I
it's a
also-
nice feature.
Well, and I did talk to somebody, it might have been a National Night Out, and again, this is just one conversation with someone in the public, but I mentioned that was, I don't know if they lived on 76th or 75th or somewhere in that vicinity, but they did say, oh, that's a good idea, we could have used one of those 2 weekends ago. And this was just a family that biked, but I see what you're saying, I'm not strongly fighting what you're saying.
Do you think it might be a good idea to hold off on that till we can do some other activation in that park too? I know we've had some past discussions on that before. I mean, that's more of a draw than just that.
yes, absolutely.
I agree with that.
That makes sense.
Or in some other park that's a little bit more heavily used, Liberty Heights, i.e. Vets Park. Something like that.
This is right off the bike trail though, that's the Hank Aaron, so.
The other place we talked about it was the connection that we're putting off of 72nd Street to the bike trail into when we do the development on 72nd and 70th Street over in that area. Another reason to come off the trail and come into West Dallas into a park area.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, Mayor, whatever.
Both.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, the fact that is that, like I say, I support the idea back then with the bike racks, within our community, But how many bikes we really have right now in those racks,
Bubbler are you talking about? The blue ones?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, hardly zero, really. So many people have really been using it. say, like I say, I'm for, because many parts of the world, the people use a lot of bike lanes, you know? I mean, they use the bikes a lot, but it seemed like here it's not, you know, there's people out there, they love to go for bike ride and trails and on and on. But my goodness, I mean, I understand the cost, you know, and then, I mean, I drive by it, I said maybe one bike just sits there or none at all.
It's because they're all rented out.
Maybe that, yeah, that's possible.
No,
I'm sorry
I
that
do too. I think Bubbler's going towards an electric bike model.
I saw one over there.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
they're expecting more usage when people don't have to work, so.
Yeah, maybe a guy like me, maybe instead of I have to pedal, just have a motorized one, you know?
Get the power assist, yeah. But,
Thank you.
yeah.
So it seems like the general consensus here is that this would be okay to put on hold for now? Yes, okay, I'll make that change.
And maybe something that the park committee could discuss too.
Well, I like the idea too of private money helping fundraise, community fundraising like we've done for the dog park and the skate park or things like that. It's always a possibility.
Let's see here, moving down to Liberty Heights. Just updated some funding here. We got a change in the quote for running the fiber. And then moving on down to Reservoir Park. I know previously we had listed running fiber internet all the way to Reservoir Park. It's a long run. Just thinking about the need for internet there and how much we need, you know, the capacity. We're not really sure yet, as far as I know, what we're gonna do with the actual reservoir.
Correct. And
Still
it's-
working on that with Milwaukee.
Correct. So the best scenario would be that we bypass the reservoir itself, the 4 million gallons reservoir that's used to help supply the western side of the city. In doing that, if you bypass that, you have to use the gravity fed, the towers, the 1.5 million gallons of water in each tower for water firefighting. And our study here of our consultant is indicating, you know, he's pretty confident, or they are, that we can go ahead and bypass the reservoir. So what we're doing at this time, we're slowly reducing our dependency in the reservoir to see if the quantity of water that we use is consistent over the last couple of years. So it used to be 6 million gallons, now it's down to 2 and 3. If we bypass the reservoir, we still would need a portion of that facility. How small, how large, still, we have to, I guess, look into that, but we'll require, instead of the 4 pumps that are there, we'll need booster pumps to charge the lines, transmission lines with that water to get it to the water tower on 84th, but also more importantly on the west end on 116th Street.
Would you still be running all that SCADA software out there? If, in that scenario?
I'd have to look, but I don't think so, no.
Okay. So,
We wouldn't have the pumps or the need with the reservoir itself.
Okay.
So I think we could bring that back into wherever, you know, the location of the water division would be in future years.
okay.
Keep it there.
So just based on that unknown, I thought it would be smart to put this project on hold, especially with the $200,000 price tag to run the internet down there, so.
Have we heard anything on what the Little League's plan are for their eternal third field? That started when my son was
Yeah.
playing T-ball,
They still have hopes of that.
do they? I mean, there's money raised,
We offered them,
design.
with the Mitchell Street project, we offered them a sewer lateral and a water lateral, and they said no. So that would kind of lead me to believe they aren't expanding.
And then the shelter roof, is that the bathroom building?
Yeah. The bathroom and then also with the little picnic area shelter, so.
So the hopes with the fiber to go out there, was that for the cameras or?
Cameras and the
Cameras.
computer equipment at the
Okay.
actual reservoir.
So there was a lot of connectivity issues. They would
Okay.
be working and then it would go on and off, but for the most part, Tony and I had a conversation today, which connectivity has been improved there.
We made some workarounds so that the employees that Dave has that work out of that pumping station can now get to the internet. They're using cell phones instead of desk phones. The cameras that are at, the Reservoir Park work, but they store all their material on a device that's in the park, which is a little inconvenient for us to get to. If we had fiber out there, we'd be able to store all that here internally. So, yeah, the fact that we don't have fiber out there, we've been able to work around it a little bit to make it usable for at least a short time.
So, I don't wanna jinx anything, but for a while there was quite a bit of vandalism in those bathrooms. Has that subsided with the locks we put on, from what you know?
It, from time to time, I guess it's less frequent.
Okay,
There for a while, it was like twice a week, and
yeah.
so
that
I would
was
say, yeah,
Pretty chronic
it's
for a
been
while.
reduced, yeah.
Patrick, just throwing this out there, I believe CDBG paid for the cameras at the parks, no, they didn't?
We used the, interest account to renovate reservoir.
So the CDBG wouldn't pay for
It's not an eligible
stuff,
park.
okay, alright. Okay. Well, you guys okay putting that one on hold for now? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And moving down to the next section, the police, there were 2 items in there. I know previously we talked about the police substation. So with all that discussion going on and the need to figure out future plans for that, I put the roof replacement on hold. I talked to Dave. He said that was okay to do that for now.
Well, we have the, Mr. Chairman, we have our chief here, Chief Mitchell. I'd like to see you, all the time. Anyway, so with the substations, national, by putting, investing $75,000 for a new roof, my thought, like I say, I mean, I could be wrong. Based on the improvements or replacing the, like building a new pavilion, and based on the fact that Liberty Heights, we've been experience more turmoil, I mean, for quite a while now, probably nothing serious, but it's been some problem there, So I was thinking about, instead of spending $75,000 for the new roof, you have a substation.
Could I just
Yes.
interrupt? 75,000 is for the Sally Port at the main
Oh.
station, but 100,000 is held on page 8. and
Okay,
that's-
all
that's
right,
for the
thank you,
substation.
Mayor.
Yeah.
Sure, I appreciate that. So my thought, the last meeting, I came across by say, I don't know if it would be a good idea, as long as we build a new pavilion, to have on the side, the substation connected with that, so I don't know if it's logical, I mean, I have no really concept that, but I feel it may be a good idea because, we are in a very east stand there, and there was some, the problem occurs, maybe by having the substation there, the squad cars off and on, they sit there, 1 or 2 squad cars, the police doing their work, whatever they're doing. So maybe it would help the situation, in the area, not just at Liberty Heights, but at surrounding just as well, So that's my thought that I threw out the last meeting, if it makes sense. I have no idea, so that's why I wonder if there's something could be looked into it,
Mr. Chair, and Alderman, I have not had a chance to talk to the chief
Oh, I'm
about
sorry, I
that
mean,
yet.
I just,
So,
I knew it was coming,
oh, okay.
that's why I'm here.
I'm sorry, Patrick.
That's
I didn't
okay.
know that.
But the one thing I did want to note is when you're using community development block grant funds, you can't use it for general conduct of government. So if the community service officer was there and sat at a desk that's above and beyond what we normally do, and that's what that officer does in that area. But if you did the satellite station there, we would not be able to use block grant funds for that
Okay.
because
Okay,
that would be normal police activity.
sure, all right.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of issues that are interconnected. So I would start off by saying, we don't care where a substation is on the east end of town, but we just want one. So any concept of splitting time between Veterans Park and Liberty Heights would not work for us. So assuming that you would find money to go from Veterans to Liberty Heights, some of the things that you have to factor in, it is a functioning police station. If we give you a tour of Veterans Park, you would see cells inside of the building. So you would have to construct some sort of cells inside of Liberty Heights. I have no clue what that would cost, but I would speculate it would not be cheap. So if you got over that hurdle, at Veterans Park, if you look at where the building, the police building is situated, it's on the far east end of the park. It has a door that we come and go through the far east end of that building. So we very quietly take prisoners into that building, and then when we're done, we very quietly release them, which would be a different experience at Liberty Heights. At Liberty Heights, the building is in the center of the park. So people will see us taking prisoners in to that facility. And more importantly, when we're done, so we don't, anyone that's going to go downtown goes to the main police station. So anyone that goes to our substation will be with us for 30 minutes to 1 hour to photograph and fingerprint process, and then we release them from there. So we will be releasing people directly into the center of the park. You'd have to look at parking. There's 4 parking stalls plus 1 handicap stall. So we essentially would have to, at a minimum, close the parking lot in the center of the park to public parking and make it police-only parking. So that's just a few of the things. We don't, you know, if the city's intent is to move it from one park to the other, that's fine, we can certainly do that. We just need to know what that entails. And that's the thing I look at, it releasing prisoners into the center of Liberty Heights Park. It's not just us going there and typing reports and checking in and out, it's more than that.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Anything else?
Okay.
Public Works?
Public Works section, Dave, you mentioned to get rid of the, is that Yonka building roof?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
Is that the
it's
main
not
leaf?
main storage, it's kind of for odds and ends and
Okay.
street maintenance.
So that was
supplies.
removed, yep. And then, Dave, I wanted to just double check, so the street sweeper on there is earmarked for carryover funding. Double check here. Now, just trying to think from a funding perspective, could you have an argument that that's a storm utility
Yes.
expense?
It is, yep,
It is.
yeah, in the
So that
past
needs
it's
to be moved over to the storm
storm,
utility then.
correct, yep,
All right.
good point. So, yeah, that's always the main responsibility is to clean, you know, for the
Right.
sanitary storm.
And if there's anything else that I might have gotten wrong on here, if you wanna
I'll
scan it, because that, we're moving completely from levy funded to fee funded with that change.
I'll check them.
Okay. And then the last item just to mention was just a funding change for the KK storm outlet. Previously, when Pete was looking at that, he was thinking that would be entirely funded with with grant funds. Best estimate at this point is that that's probably not gonna be fully funded with grant funding. So, we put some additional cash funding in there from the storm utility. And that's the extent of the changes since last time. Is there any other questions? So far, 2 more changes, put the bike station on hold and change the funding structure for the street sweeper.
With the Kinnickinnick issue, I mean, are we getting funding from Milwaukee, Switch District?
MMSD, yes.
Yeah, so we would be getting some funding from our Green Solutions
Yes.
money.
Substantial amount still, yeah.
Yeah, but not all of it would be funded
Funded,
with
okay.
that money. So some would have to be from our storm utility.
Thank you.
What is the excavator used for? That,
And don't say excavating.
Excavate.
Yeah.
I guess we'd have to look at what is the percentage of use, for storm, catch basin repairs, replacements, potentially. I mean, arbitrarily, you'd have to assign a percentage, but potentially could, yeah.
and the wheel loader, I don't know what that is.
So that's a front end loader, which we
Oh.
use for yard waste and loading
Okay, so
materials,
that's
so.
not, okay. And then I just wanted to mention about the parking signs for the state fair. I talked with Dave about this. We were gonna probably get together with engineering and kind of start from the beginning and look at where all those signs are, in the first place, cause I think we might not have been looking at them as far as in the residential areas for quite some time.
Okay.
Just kind of a review of why and
Okay. So this is something that, now that State Fair is done, we're looking at
yeah,
what we had in the past and if it needs to stay that way.
right.
Okay. Right.
And I just don't want it to be a victim of, we're getting new signs, permanent ones, and just because we've always put them out, now we're paying money to do permanent ones there, so. That has nothing to do with funding, just, just a more of a comment. Hopefully, we would reduce some of it, but I don't know what the basis is for all of the places. I'm assuming some of it is safety, like on 76th Street, but I don't know if other places are just because we wanna keep the curbs free for people to have people drive up on their lawns to make money for parking.
So if you drive around, it's one side or the other is restricted. If you could park on both sides during the
You couldn't
state
get
fair,
through?
I don't know if you would get a fire engine.
No,
through and-
I could barely get through.
We had a structure fire just off the parade route, for the 4th of July parade, and we could not, our positioning was really bad. Fortunately, it didn't hurt. too
So are those streets that we should just have one side parking all the time?
much. If you're asking me, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's
That's the
different
opposite of what we're trying to do with slowing people down on our streets. But yeah,
Everyone except the fire and police.
My interests should not, my interests are one of many, of course, but fire department interests, absolutely one side of those residential streets. In the winter, there are times, and we tend to get lucky, it's not a big deal, but there are times where if we're gonna get in there, we're gonna have to take a mirror off, there's no way we're getting in there.
Yeah, on 76, I mean, it works well, I mean, for a long time now. I mean, the east, from Lincoln all the way to the track, no parking on the east side, So to me, that's,
I mean, maybe some discussions like that, I
The
don't know,
street is
before
narrow.
Public
That's
Works
the
or
reason,
something. Just think about why we're doing things in the first place.
right, yeah, and I think that's exactly right. I think that's the analysis, but yeah, just from seeing the fair again, it seems that there's a need to continue how it has been.
Anyone have anything else?
The question about the after the way the chief, police chief described, more so erring on the side of keeping where the substation is, the current substation versus moving it. How bad is the roof at the current substation, and do we need to put that funding back in? So,
So the roof, we are, currently right now, we're trying to get updated quotes. We're hearing anything from $40,000 to $60,000, so it's gonna be a reduction. But the roof is, you know, there's two roofs on it, probably over 25, 30 years old. So,
so do we need
Needs to be
to add
replaced.
funding back in? Cause that one is in the hold category.
Probably no more in the next meeting, right? By the next meeting?
the quotes, yeah, that we're getting, we'll know more, but it's going to be below 100,000. But I would be in favor if that, would be used, and, you know, again, for the police department, we would have to address that either this year, more importantly, next year for sure.
I mean, what else do we have to talk about?
I don't think we have anything else to talk about, so I don't know that there's gonna be another meeting.
I do have comments
Do
though.
you? Okay.
Yeah, so, I would personally be in favor of that or picking a different project, moving it to next year. And the reason I'm saying that is, I was trying to keep, the carryover column under $3 million. So we've been doing this, estimated funding year over year. And my goal is, at some point, to eventually accumulate enough cash in that fund that the surplus at the end of the year is then what we get to use in the next budget. We actually have a set limit to use. The problem with not knowing how much carryover we have is then we finally get to the next year, and if there isn't enough, how are we gonna then come back and make the decision of which projects are getting cut? So I wanna hold us to a somewhat reasonable limit of $3 million. Currently, we're right there.
Okay.
Makes sense.
That was gonna be one of my questions, is what are we borrowing then?
Yeah, the borrowing, annual borrowing is reasonable to what we typically do. The streets borrowing itself is 3.2 million, our limit is 3.75, so we're under that. I think the carryover is, you know, just under that 3 million, that's reasonable. And then the rest of it is grant or cash funded.
So you're saying we shouldn't add it back in then?
I would prefer that we don't add that back in, and if we did, I would ask that we would choose something else to remove or delay.
Is there,
We're talking about the police substation roof still,
Right,
correct?
and Dave was
Thank you.
saying, you know, maybe, that we'll get quotes soon,
Yeah.
maybe around $60,000. So we would, if we wanna add that back in, we'd have to be looking at removing, something in similar or more.
I guess the question for the chief is leaks.
It was in there the other night,
Yeah.
I didn't see any fires.
But it wasn't raining.
So potentially, you know, as I mentioned, you know, we could carry on to the one more year, but if there were leaks, we could take care of them internally.
I'll find out.
so maybe just leave it on hold, and if it needs to be done, comes out of operating or somewhere else, leave that up to the mayor and the council to decide. So,
Okay, that's fair.
Anything else? Our next meeting's on the 25th, I believe. Does that sound right?
Do we need to have another
that-
meeting?
August 25th, correct.
Yeah, I don't know that,
so it said Monday, but then it said August 25th. I think it was scheduled for the 29th, but,
it's Monday,
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair?
the 29th.
I make a motion to, pass the 2023 capital improvements, or capital budget, there we go. As discussed earlier with the Two new items going on hold.
The bike station going on hold.
Yep.
And the change in the street sweeper funding.
And then with also flexibility, as we did last year, for funding changes, and or, project changes as needed. That's come up in the near future, so.
That was the longest motion I've ever heard.
Nonetheless, I second it.
I'm not reading that whole motion. I'll summarize
You
it.
got
I'll
the,
let
you
go.
got the gist.
You know
of
what
it.
we did today, yeah.
A motion to do what we talked about doing.
We all had nodded.
Motion
Accomplish
to
everything you said.
with flexibility.
Yeah.
Any discussion on the motion? Right, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. And then we'll need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So, like,
Oh.
cancel the next meeting.
Yeah.
No formal motion is needed.
Yeah.
If I could, I just want to compliment the process this year.
Thank you.
Jason and Rebecca. It just went very smoothly. It was easy, to enter in our projects, so I appreciate that, so thanks for
Oh,
doing that.
Jason.
Thank you,
Couple of,
Jason.
couple of years ago, our first meeting alone would have taken up more time than
Yeah.
the two meetings that we've had.
Yeah, it was.
That's the truth.
Thank you, Jason.
Like this?
Props.
Um,
Yeah, I brought the old one.
Yeah.
Did we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?